December 12th, 2018. Call the meeting to order. First order of business, the approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next order of business then is the approve of the minutes from our November 28th meeting. What's your pleasure?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
There's a second. Is there any questions or discussions or corrections? Hearing or seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. At this point of the meeting, members of the public who wish to address the council on matters that are not on the agenda may do so. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I think, Mark, you're going to comment. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. What happens when you bring your own furniture? Thank you. That's all it is. Really.
Thank you.
Members of the council, Mr. Chairman, my name is Mark Hughes. I'm a first transit rider in Metropolitan, have been for quite some time. I can't say that I'm always satisfied, and I do understand there's a volume of ridership and a lot of driver turnover. But I was sitting in the audit meeting today, and I've asked for years Jim Nobles to step up the audit on Metropolitan. We've had a lot of internal problems, not being strapped down, getting my garage, these type of things. And mistakes do happen. The more you drive, the more vulnerable you are to speeding ticket or parking ticket or whatever. However, I'm finding as I'm riding, I don't think now that the big problem is the drivers. I'm here to tell you today that I think the big problem is the administration, the management. On the contractor side, right here downtown. I don't know. I've managed a long time, and I'm probably going to go a little longer. But I just don't see any satisfactory result in the way that we're managing. And there needs to be some changes. And as a business person and a taxpayer, I guess I have the right to say that, whether you agree or disagree. We've got to make these changes. We got to make it now. Our ridership's increasing. We don't have enough buses. We're paying our drivers $16 an hour now to begin. We're not keeping our drivers retention-wise. We're still short drivers. I don't know what the answer is, but I can't run our companies and yours too. But as a taxpayer, I can tell you I'm not happy. And we're not managing. And it's got to be managed now. I don't care what changes you make. Something's got to be done. And each one of you on the Met Council needs to know this. You can contact me, email me, call me. I'll come right back down here at any time, and I'll explain it to you again. But I've told you time and time again that these things need to be done, that we need audits. And a good example today is Southwest Valley Transit. It has nothing to do with Metropolitan. 3/4 of their audits they're not meeting their audit, the rules. And again, I've asked Jim Nobles to audit Metropolitan. Oh, well, we'll get to it. It's not on the list, I mean, these things have to be taken care of. These are vulnerable adults. And I wish that the Met Council would do more of a hands-on approach on what we have, because we're all going to get to the age you're going to join our party and all right. Thanks, have a good holiday.
Good. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for your comments. I don't believe that there's any other individuals from the public that would like to comment, so we will move on to our business. And our first item is our consent agenda. What's your pleasure?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any questions or corrections on that? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of moving that agenda forward as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Now on to reports of standing committees. First will be from Community Development. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two items from the committee relating to the Livable Communities Program. The first is 2018-328, and that's an action to award nearly $300,000 in Livable Communities Demonstration Account pre-development grant funds to support 3 pre-development projects in 2 cities in the region. 2 proposals were received from the City of St. Paul and 1 proposal from the City of Minneapolis. In this round. Each of the 3 projects is proposed to be mixed use and mixed income, adding a variety of housing options as well as businesses. And so, Mr. Chair, on behalf of the committee, I move that the council first authorize the transfer of $174,600 from the Livable Communities Demonstration Account Development Program to the Livable Communities Demonstration Account Pre-Development Program. Secondly, award 3 Livable Communities Demonstration Account Pre-Development grants for $299,600 as listed in the committee report. And finally, authorize our Community Development Division Director to execute the grant agreement on behalf of this council.
Great, so you've heard the recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any questions or comments to John? Seeing none, all in favor of moving that recommendation forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The second item is to award $120,000 in Livable Communities Demonstration Account Transit-Oriented Development Grant Funds to support 4 zoning implementation projects in 2 cities. This is item 2018-339. Upon completion, the projects are expected to set the stage for redevelopment, demonstrating TOD principles in the cities of Brooklyn Center and in Burnsville. The city of Brooklyn Center has proposed significant changes to its land use categories in their 2040 comprehensive plan update, and they've begun work on major revisions to the zoning code to align with the comp plan update. This work includes a new TOD zoning district to provide for a mix of uses, increased densities, and reduced parking requirements near the Brooklyn Center Transit Hub and the future C-Line BRT service. The city of Burnsville is proposing a new TOD zoning district to be applied at its 2 future Orange Line BRT stations near the heart of the city district. This new zoning district will focus on improving pedestrian connections and transit access with reduced parking requirements and increased densities. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the council first award 2 Livable Communities Demonstration Account TOD zoning implementation grants totaling $120,000 to assist with the development of TOD zoning districts in these cities of Brooklyn Center and Burnsville. And secondly, authorize the Community Development Division Director to execute the grant agreements on behalf of the council.
So you've heard the recommendation. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any questions or comments, Member Commerce? Not hearing or seeing none, all those in favor of moving that recommendation forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thanks, John. With that, Member Rubble on the Environment Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Business item 2018-346 is the same week item, and it is a request for reclaimed water agreements with Entercom. And I'm going to invite Janine Clancy, our Assistant Manager of Technical Services, to walk the members through the item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Tonight we are here to present 2 agreements with Entercom for reclaimed water service. The proposed Southeast Metro Water Reclamation Facility would divert 2 million gallons a day of treated wastewater effluent from the Mpca Wastewater Treatment Facility located in Rosemont, and we would treat it to a higher level for purposes of reuse, and we would pipe the reclaimed water to Entercom's proposed waste to biofuel facility in April. And there's the location, I beg your pardon, there's the location of the facilities. The Mpca facility located in Empire Township, as well as our wastewater treatment facility in Rosemont, and then the proposed SKB Entercom facility in Inver Grove Heights. So in March of 2017, Entercom submitted a letter stating its interest in reclaimed water service. In February of this year, the council authorized staff to negotiate a memorandum of understanding and a design deposit agreement with Entercom. In April of this year, the council authorized a public hearing for the proposed Southeast Metro Water Reclamation Facility Plan. And in May, the council held a public hearing for the facility plan. And following up in June, the council adopted that facility plan. Also in June, the council staff submitted the plan to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for PFA funding review, and the facility plan forms the basis of design for these proposed facilities. And again, staff are here today to request that the council authorize 2 agreements with Entercom. One, a memorandum of understanding, and the second one being a design deposit agreement for the preliminary design of council facilities. So the memorandum of understanding is a non-binding agreement and memorializes Entercom and the council's joint understandings and expectations for developing the project. And then the second agreement, which is the design deposit agreement for preliminary design services, defines Entercom's commitment to pay for council's preliminary design activities, as well as the method for this payment. So we've identified on the screen the key points of the memorandum of understanding. First of all, it is a non-binding agreement. It establishes how Entercom will pay for the council's activities during design, construction, and operation of the Southeast Metro Water Reclamation Facility. It also makes clear that Entercom is responsible for all costs associated with the waste to biofuels facilities, and it describes the key terms for future reclaimed water service agreement and how Entercom will pay for construction and operation and maintenance costs associated with those facilities. So we've included key terms such as our quantity and quality of the water and how it will be used, that Entercom will pay for SAC fees, Entercom's payments of the industrial waste discharge fee, reclaimed water service interruption, permits, insurance, the term of the agreement, etc. So a wide number of things that will be memorialized in a final agreement. The design deposit agreement is a binding agreement that requires Entercom to pay a design deposit for the council's preliminary design work. The design deposit payment schedule is tied to the preliminary design work products. Should the council receive a grant from Mpca for the design work, the grant funds would be used to reimburse Entercom for half of the preliminary design cost. The maximum cost for the preliminary design phase is $600,000. If the $300,000 grant from the Mpca is received, then the council would reimburse Entercom for $300,000 for the amount of the grant. And then it also defines a technical coordination team, because this is it's very important that these 2 projects can work together, that would be comprised of key Entercom and council project staff that would coordinate all the preliminary design work, share information about council's facilities, as well as Entercom's facilities, to make sure that the 2 projects are well coordinated. So in addition, I'd just like to give you an overview of the Mpca reuse grant, which is the following item, but it is key to the memorandum of understanding and the design deposit agreement. Pursuing this grant is consistent with the council's wastewater reuse policy that states that the council will pursue non-council funds for wastewater reuse projects. The 2017 legislature authorized $300,000 in grant funds directed to the Metropolitan Council. As mentioned previously, the grant, if received, will be applied to the preliminary design costs, reducing the amount Entercom pays for those costs by $300,000. And these grant funds must be used by June 13th, 2019. So before you is the preliminary design schedule. If this agreement is approved by the council and then is fully executed by Entercom, and we receive the funds for the design deposit, we would begin design in January. We would wrap up the preliminary design report June, and then we would anticipate that all work associated with the Mpca reuse grant would be completed by June as well. Now, in terms of the overall schedule for the for the Southeast Metro Water Reclamation Facility, again, design begins in 2019. We anticipate that there will be a discussion regarding the regional investment that was identified as part of the policy plan recommendations, or a cost share for the reclaimed water service, and that public process would be held in summer of 2019. In June of 19, we would complete our preliminary design report. In July to December, Assuming that Entercom agrees to proceed with the project at that time, we would proceed with detailed design. And again, that would require another deposit agreement and another deposit of funds by Entercom. In January through April of 2020, we would enter into a construction contract, bid and award, begin construction in May of 2020. And our plan would be to commission and start up the project by December 2021. And that at this point is consistent with Entercom's need for when they require the reclaimed water to be available to them. So this project is consistent with our Thrive lens and the council's stated role to pursue wastewater reuse where economically feasible as a means to promote sustainable water resources. Council staff are working with council partners to develop this project. The project maximizes regional benefits from regional investments and would provide efficient, high-quality, sustainable wastewater services. And I think one of the important elements of the Thrive lens is the indication from the city of Inver Grove Heights that they have chosen not to provide water service to Entercom as it would impact their ability to grow. It would take away, it would remove opportunities for further development in the city. So the proposed action before the council tonight is that the Metropolitan Council authorize staff to execute a memorandum of understanding and a design deposit agreement for preliminary design with Entercom related to reclaimed water service.
Member Romo?
Therefore, Mr. Chair, do you want me to repeat the
You
proposed?
can do whatever you want.
Okay. I like that. Therefore, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize staff to execute a memorandum of understanding and a design deposit agreement with Entercom related to reclaimed water surfaces.
Great, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or questions, comments? Thanks for the presentation. You're seeing none. All those in favor of moving that recommendation forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Member Rubble.
The next item, Mr. Chair, is business item 2018-347, same week. And it is a request for a Minnesota Pollution Control Agency wastewater reuse grant agreement. And again, I'm asking Janine Clancy to walk us through that.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, excuse me, and members of the council, the agreement before you again, I mentioned portions of it was in the previous business item. Again, it was a legislative appropriation for $300,000 from the Environmental Fund to the Mpca for the purposes of this reuse project. And the purpose was, again, for design or construction of wastewater infrastructure for waste to biofuel development. We have identified that the majority of these funds would be used for design. A matching fund, the legislative authorization required matching funds, and those matching funds will be provided by Entercom. The duration of the grant is available until June 30th of 2019. It is for the use of the Southeast Metro Water Reclamation Facility preliminary design cost. And again, it is consistent with council policy as indicated previously in terms of our water resources policy plan. So I'm going to skip through these slides as I've just gone through them. And the recommendation before you is that the council authorize staff to negotiate and execute a wastewater reuse grant agreement with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency.
Member Rubble.
Mr. Chair, therefore, I propose that the Metropolitan Council authorize staff to negotiate and execute a wastewater reuse grant agreement with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Again, thanks for the presentation. You're seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Member
Thank you,
Rubble.
Mr. Chair. Business item 2018-348, same week, is a request for a security officer services contract. The contract provides security guard services at MCES facilities as well as at the 390 Roberts Street North facility. The contractor will provide professional, trained, and qualified uniformed security officer to protect council property from vandalism, theft, and other similar damage. Security staff on site are responsible for securing buildings, grounds, and entrances in order to provide a safe and secure working environment for staff. In response to a request for proposal, 7 proposals were received. A 4-person panel evaluated the proposals using the criteria listed in the business item. The decision was made to award the 3-year contract to Securitas Security Services USA, Inc. Therefore, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute a contract with Securitas Security Services USA, Inc. to provide security officer services for MCES locations and 390 Roberts Street from February 1st, 2019 through January 31st, 2022 in the amount of $3,885,000. The contract number is 18P246.
Great. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair?
Member Reynoso.
Thank you. One of the things, just wanted to update from the questions that were asked yesterday in committee. The question was how much these workers get paid, and the concern that we've got to make sure that we're creating good jobs out there, and it's not the lowest bidder that's going to pay the cheapest price for their labor. The starting rate is $15.20 with a 40-cent annual increase, which isn't the best, but it's better than some. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I know there were a few questions in the committee last night. So
Great. Thanks for your comments. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving this recommendation forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Member Rumble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Business item 2018-349, same week, is a request for an amendment to our business analytics professional services contract. One of MCES's strategic goals is to improve customer service and improve our customer level of service. MCES has developed a self-service online portal to communicate, engage, and coordinate with our communities. The proposed amendment includes a scope addition to an existing professional technical services contract that delivers business analytics tools and visualizations. Other work that is in the scope of the contract was deferred and still needs to be completed. Due to the success of the portal additional use cases for improving customer services have been identified for implementation. And those of us who were in the Environment Committee yesterday, it was they give us a demonstration of this portal. And it was really extremely impressive to see the continuous improvement philosophy behind it, the coordination, and the various projects that have been taken on over time. I can't even remember right now offhand the numbers that are just really impressive. The amount of time for staff is reduced, the amount of time for our customers is reduced, the satisfaction of our customers is reduced, the coordination between the different parts of our services is increased. It's just a tremendous asset. So to get that portal done, we had to slow down some of the other analytic work that was on contract, and that's why we're asking for this addition to the contract. So I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize its regional administrator to execute a contract amendment in the amount of $560,000 to an existing professional technical services contract 16P239, awarded to Dunn Solutions Group, not to exceed $1,104,500 for a contract period ending December 31st, 2020.
Great. You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving the recommendation forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. On to management. Member Chavez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First business item here is 2018-351. It's the same week item to bind coverage for Southwest Light Rail Transit Builders Risk Property Insurance. This seeks council's authorization to bind coverage of builders risk property insurance for the Southwest Light Rail construction project in an amount not to exceed $2,200,000. This insurance, which is for the term of the project and is contractually required, provides coverage for damage to property and materials related to the construction of Southwest Light Rail. Council staff has been working with its insurance broker and has built an insurance program that will be led by Liberty International. The insurance not only provides very competitive pricing, but also meets the contractual requirements with its coverage. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize binding coverage of Southwest Light Rail Builders Risk Insurance in an amount not to exceed $2,200,000.
Great. You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving that recommendation forward say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Member Chavez.
Related business item, 2018-355, another same week item, to bind coverage for the Southwest Light Railroad Protective Liability Insurance. This item seeks council authorization to bind coverage of railroad protective liability insurance for the Southwest Light Rail construction project in an amount not to exceed $700,000. This insurance, which is for the term of the project and is contractually required by the railroads, provides liability protection to the railroads for losses that may be related to the construction of light rail. Council staff, working with its broker, has secured a competitive quote from Chubb Insurance as the lead insurer on this program. Chubb has not only provided a quote that is advantageous to the council from a pricing standpoint, but the coverage is also broad enough to meet the contractual requirements of the railroads. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize binding coverage of railroad protective liability insurance for Southwest Light Rail construction in an amount not to exceed $700,000.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussions or questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving that recommendation forward say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. On to transportation.
Thank you,
Member
Mr. Chair.
Rodriguez.
2018-318,
This is your last report, right?
this is my last report. 2018-318 adds a new project into the Transportation Improvement Program. The project is the expansion of I-94 from St. Michael to Albertville, which was selected for funding under MnDOT's 2018 Quarters of Commerce program, and is located in Wright County, but within the extended Twin Cities urbanized metropolitan area. Councilmember Latowski did vote against this motion in committee. I therefore move, Mr. Chair, that the Metropolitan Council concur with the Transportation Advisory Board action to amend the 2019-2022 Transportation Improvement Program to add a project reconstructing and expanding I-94 in Wright County.
Great. You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving this recommendation forward say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll note that. Thank you. Okay.
2018-320 deals with the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, Section 5310, Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Persons with Disabilities Program, which is funded by FTA through MnDOT's Office of Transit. The selection of these projects is done through grant applications submitted to FTA. The timing of project selection is not compatible with the Transportation Improvement Program development, and in order for the agencies to purchase their vehicles, an amendment is needed. I therefore move, Mr. Chair, that the Metropolitan Council concur with the Transportation Advisory Board action to amend the 2019-2022 Transportation Improvement Program to include funding for 11 enhanced mobility for seniors and persons with disabilities projects.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of it say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask Vice Chair Schreiber to make the next motion. Last night, the City of Richfield approved my contract for city manager, and it's been signed. And so this is to approve an engineering or a design engineering consultant to design the D line. And there's 4 stops in Richfield, so to avoid any conflict of interest, I'm going to also abstain from the vote.
Thank you. Member Schreiber.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Item number 2018-324, same week, deals with the D-line design and construction administration services contract. Metro Transit requires an engineering consultant to provide design and construction administration services for the D-line. A request for proposals was issued June 28, 2018. 4 firms responded to the RFP. An evaluation panel representing council staff and project partners evaluated the proposals, and then a negotiations and panel representing council staff evaluated the highest ranked proposer's cost proposal, negotiated contract cost, and recommends award to the HDR Engineering Incorporated. The Office of Equal Opportunity determined that HDR's proposal meets the DBE goal of 20% assigned to this contract. I therefore move, Mr. Chair, that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute a professional services contract with HDR Engineering Incorporated in the amount of $9,493,918 for design, engineering, and construction administration for the D-Line BRT project.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving that recommendation forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2018-326 is the same week item and deals with the purchase of bus operator barriers. For the past year, a committee made up of bus operators, maintenance technicians, police officers, and ATU leadership met monthly to review, test, and select an operator barrier. In mid-October, the committee recommended a barrier manufactured by Bentech Inc. for the operator's area that can partially shield the operator's area or be pinned back, leaving the operator area open. I therefore move, Mr. Chair, that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to award a sole source procurement contract with Bentech Inc. in the amount not to exceed $1,125,000 to purchase up to 450 operator barriers.
Great. You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving this recommendation forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And our last item,
One more,
member?
yeah. 2018-335 is also a same week item. Metro Transit MTS upgraded all bus go-to card readers in 2016, moving to the latest generation of devices known as the Bus Mobile Validator, or BMV. Recently, Metro Mobility installed nearly 100 additional BMVs on vehicles that had not previously required go-to card readers, significantly depleting spare devices. This order will provide 113 spares for MTS and 100 spares for Metro Transit. At a cost of about $3,000 each, this price is fair and reasonable compared to what Metro Transit paid for these units as part of our initial order in 2016. I therefore move, Mr. Chair, that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administration to negotiate and execute a sole source contract with Cubic Transportation Systems for the purchase of additional go-to card readers and associated parts in an amount not to exceed $700,000.
Great. You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any comments, questions? Hearing or seeing none, all in favor of moving that recommendation forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. And I'll save my comments till later on in the meeting for you.
I think that was
So
a
with,
threat.
so with that,
Sounds threatening, Mr. Chairman.
not at all. Not at all. So the next order of business is, or the other order of business is the appointment of our Transportation Committee. As you all know, Member Rodriguez will be becoming the Richfield City Manager, and congratulations.
Congratulations.
You'll do a great job. She's currently as the chair of the Transportation Committee and the council appointed representative on the tab. New committee assignments obviously will be made after the governor makes his council appointments in the first part of 2019 to ensure the Transportation Committee has a chair until committee assignments are made and ensure an ongoing council representation on tab. I'm recommending that Deb Barber fulfill that chair until a new representative is appointed by the new governor-elect. effective January 2nd, 2019. So that would be my recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or comments?
Good choice.
Great. If none, all those in favor of moving that recommendation forward, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. So we have an informational piece from, I believe it's the next thing on the agenda. Is that correct? So Ed and the two,
That's me.
and then Nalima, if you all could come up and give us recent work initiatives on their 2019 work plan for the Equity Advisory Committee. And thanks for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, it's kind of different sitting on this side. So first of all, I'd like to introduce a couple EAC members that are here today for the meeting. I believe Metric, Shirley, you just stand up. You recognized. These are two members of the EAC committee also, and they do a fantastic job providing input for us. And thank you for your service. So as the bylaws state for the Equity Advisory Committee, we're tasked with presenting or giving you a report on a yearly basis. Last time we provided a report, we were just starting off, so to speak, and creating this new committee. And obviously, we hit some speed bumps. There was a process. There had never been a committee like this at the Met Council. So to try to develop it and put it together, training, kind of providing input to the advisory members was a very big responsibility, and I think after everything was said and done, I think we did a pretty good job. But this overview is based on 4 different pieces of the roadmap: the Equity Advisory Committee overview and the recent accomplishments, the AC review results, and the draft initial 2019 work plan that both Nalim and I will kind of go over. The Equity Advisory Committee was created in 2015 after a lot of conversations that took place in collaboration with the Blue Line Coalition, the Equity in Place, Southwest Equity Commitments, and the Community Engagement Steering Committee. And the EAC traces back to the Equity Working Group recommendations presented to the Council in 2014, and thus the EAC was created in 2015 by this Council. I was proud to take a vote, and it was a unanimous vote to create the EAC. I believe it was really important for us to be able to get recommendations and attain recommendations from the community. And in order to do that, we had to create this committee that would truly give us a snapshot of what's going on in our communities, in different communities. So this created a 21-member group committee that, let me see here. Guess I'm supposed to be doing this, huh? There's the 4 presentation outlines. Is created in 2015. The purpose was, as I stated, was to provide input to us as council members so that when we make decisions that impact our communities, we have buy-in and we have input from these communities. Currently, we have 17 members. We're 4 members short. If you can see, District G is vacant. We have 2 at-large seats that are vacant, and we have 1 council member seat that's vacant. Currently, we have 3 council members: myself, Chair Melander, Jennifer Munt, and Councilmember Chavez did serve for a little while. But the next council will be tasked with filling all of these seats again. And I'm optimistic that we'll continue to move forward on the EAC. Recent accomplishments. really, this is just some of them. I can tell you that through the process of the EAC, we have a ton of conversation surrounding issues that, these are just some of them. But I'm really proud, and the committee's really proud of the recommendations that we put forward through a lot of conversation. Some of it was tough. Some of it, not everybody agreed with, but at the end of the day, it was the best recommendation that came forward on the transit fare change. And remember, the committee recommended a 25-cent increase. But what I'm really proud of, and the committee is really proud of, is creation of the permanent TAP program. The the transit assistant program, I believe, has done wonders for a lot of people in our communities that needed transit to get to and from work, to and from school, or whatever they needed to fulfill a lot of their daily life tasks. And so I'm really proud that we were able to move that forward with our transit fare change. Secondly, the EAC provided substantial advice for the Met Council's equity policy plan. We also provided a considerable amount of input for the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan. And we welcomed on board a new co-chair, Nalima, and we had new members come in that again, we had to train, not train, I shouldn't use the word train, but we had to get up to speed on a lot of the intricacies of the Met Council. And I think most important is we developed an EAC review and analyzed the results. And what that basically consists of is we wanted to learn from what we did right and what we did wrong in the creation of this EAC of what type of information onboarding really needed. And, we made some mistakes at the beginning, and I think through collaboration with input from the outgoing and the current EAC members, I believe we put forward an onboarding process that is much better than the first one. So going on here, we also, let's see, we also had 7 new members appointed to this last spring and summer, which was part of the onboarding process. And I think it went really well.
So in 2014, as a part of the recommendations of the Equity Working Group that recommended the forming of the Equity Advisory Committee, was that there would be a review of the committee after 2 years, after the committee having started to work in 2 years. So in 2018, we had a visit from Chair Termoff in April, and the committee embarked on coming up with a review process of the EAC as had been set out by the Equity Working Group. And the review group, some of the principles that we adopted is that we would have a collaborative and inclusive process, comprehensive and dual focused. It would be future oriented, and it would respect where the committee is and all the work done to date. And we would not just embark on a review for the sake of having a review. In terms of the review process, we had 5 members of the Equity Advisory Committee were part of the EAC review subgroup to shape the review. And the group talked about what the purpose and scope of the review would be. We identified who should be part of the review process. We developed the interview questions. And then the group also assessed the results of the interview and reported back to the full committee. So we had a number of stakeholders groups that were involved in the review process, and this included current members of the EAC and members of the EAC who were transitioned out of the committee itself. We had council members who participated in the review process. We had community members and community groups who had been a part of forming the Equity Advisory Group also participate in the review process. And we also had division heads and other staff who had presented at the Equity Advisory Committee participate in the review process. So this is a summary of the results of the review process. So one of the big highlights of the review was that it was clear that there was a lack of clarity regarding the role, purpose, and impact, despite widespread agreement that the ESC should be applying an equity lens to the council's work and providing advice based on that analysis. So people differed, especially internally within enterprise and even within some of the council members, about what the role of the ESC should be, how far the ESC should go, what more should the ESC do. One of the other results was also that they needed to be, we needed to improve trust between the Equity Advisory Committee members and the council members and staff. We identified a need to improve communication among all stakeholders, so in terms of council staff, community groups, the Equity Advisory Committee. And then what also was clear as a result of the review process was there was a lack of consensus on what equity means or what equity looks like. And so we realized that even within enterprise, though there's this equity work going on, we don't have the same staff is not operating from the same framework, or there's no common language or common goals on what type of equity we're trying to pursue. And also on our part as a committee, we identified there was a lack of clear process for the committee to provide advice to the council. So these are some of the things in coming up with our 2019 work plan that the committee has set out to address. So in terms of the review, since doing the review, even as a committee, we have continued to look back on the results of the review. We had a retreat to start working on our work plan and decided to start addressing the results of what were identified during the review process. And also, as I just mentioned, this review process very much informs, our 2019 work plan. So although what we have submitted, you received a copy of this, is a very high level and overarching view of what our 2019 work plan is going to look like. But in general, one of the things we identified for the 2019 work plan, the committee has set out 3 overarching goals for our 2019 work plan, and that is to build trust and influence, to operate well, that is, be action-oriented, review our processes as a committee and increase communication, and then to strengthen community engagement, because that is one of the things that was very clear from the community groups, that we need to strengthen the community engagement. In addition to our 3 overarching goals, the committee has throughout the year had a lot of discussion about, in addition to giving advice to the policy work that goes on in the council, committee members wanted to identify a few items that the committee could really dig into in 2019, so that at the end of the year, the committee could look back and say, what are some tangible things that we have really been able to move the needle on? And so some of those items are items that we felt have come up that community members have consistently pointed to us that they would really like to see Med Council really make some real steps moving, some real movement on. And so the 3 items that the committee will be really digging into in 2019 is the issue about transit equity, housing, and accessibility, as in regards to what the council has jurisdiction over. And so in doing this, we recognize that the committee only meets for 24 hours each year. We only meet once a month. And so we will be working to prioritize items based on the ESC's opportunity to impact the council's work.
And this is just a draft as it stands now. And the way we developed this, we asked each division to submit their work plans for 2019. And so that was derived. That was basically the foundation of what created this work plan. Now, many of you will be returning for the next appointment, have reapplied, and will be returning. Some of you may be returning, obviously. If you're a chair of a committee, or you plan to be a chair, or you're asked to be a chair for the next council, we ask that if there is any issue that is coming forward to your committee that and you believe there should be input from the Equity Advisory Committee, we ask that you put it forward, that you let us know. So with that, that's the conclusion of our report.
Great.
Any questions?
Thanks very much for the report, and I would assume that there's probably some questions or comments, I hope, from the board.
Sure, just one more thing. Let me add one more thing. I think the purpose too of doing the presentation today is to solicit feedback on the plan from council members, because the next step of the process is that we will be taking all the feedback back and the draft. This is a draft work plan, and we will be finalizing the work plan at our next ESC meeting, which will be next week on Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Great, thank you. Comments or questions? Go ahead. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do want to say this is great progress from when the last time we had the report, and there was a lot of feedback from the committee itself, if you recall, because I got several letters from committee members, and I think others did. So I, look at this as a great stride forward. It seems like it's better organized, more thought put into the question of how the committee can add value to some of the deliberations of this body. So I want to commend the chairs and the committee for doing that work. And clearly, trust is a big issue. And, how do you know when you're there? And, all of those things are going to be a question as you move forward. I would, I think I, on the management committee and on this, in this body, have been questioning and asking for results around our participation of women and people of color in our contracting, particularly goods and services side. It's my understanding from talking to the administrator that we're going to set some goals around that. And it seems like that would be something the committee would be interested in because of the lack of wealth in many of the communities of color and among women in general in our society. So I didn't see that in the work plan, but I know it's something that we've had a lot of discussions of, and I'd like to see that continue into the future. I do think that the issue, and another issue that had arisen, was the level of employment of women in our workforce. Came up several months ago, and it was a surprising statistic. So I mean, I think that's something else we should look at and make sure that we have a number of women in our workforce that reflect the population, or those that are in the requisite jobs to take those positions. I think that's an important thing too. So those are my 2 cents as a suggestion for things to think about. I know that the Office of Equal Opportunity and the General Counsel's Office gave a presentation to the Management Committee that I think that the Equity Advisory Committee would be interested in looking at with regards to these issues. So I think you've come a long way. I really want to commend you for sticking with it, Council Member Reynoso, and congratulations on your new role, Leo. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Cunningham, thank you for those kind words. First of all, there's so much more that the Equity Advisory Committee could possibly do in advising this council. But one of the problems that we have is capacity, right? The reality is 24 hours a year, it's 2 hours a month. And so that becomes problematic when you don't have the capacity to be effective in so many different areas. I think we can do a much better job in accessibility. I think we can grow by strides in accessibility, and I know we need to do a better job. And that's just one of the areas that we can pile on here. But the reality is it's the capacity, which is a little bit of a dilemma. So, thank you.
Thanks. Member Munt.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank co-chairs Ed Reynoso and Nalima. You have done extraordinary work. In my mind, the work that the Equity Advisory Committee has done has been some of the hardest work here at the council. I thank Shirley and Metric. There is so much wisdom around the table. If you think about the work that we do here, buses, flushes, parks, and housing, those are issues that touch people's daily lives, and we need to make sure that low-wealth individuals and people of color and indigenous people have a voice in both planning and benefiting from those investments that we make. And to me, that's what equity means. And it's not just listening to the advice of the Equity Advisory Committee, but it's being intentional about reaching out to communities that traditionally haven't been at the table.
Great, thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Go ahead, Member Dorfman.
Just a question. I think in terms of moving forward and maximizing this committee, both the internal members and community members that devote their time to do this really important work, and given that, you know, you can't meet more often, in order to maximize that, it probably takes some pretty intensive staff support. And so I think my question is, and you know, what has been that level of staff support, and is that an area that could be strengthened to support the members of the committee moving forward? And I don't know, since I haven't participated.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Councilmember Dorfman, thank you for reminding me, because as everybody here knows, you know, we show up and a lot of the stuff is provided for us, and we have some phenomenal staff that is the backbone to a lot of this work. So Shirley and Yolanda, please stand. I'm sorry. Leslie and Yolanda, please stand up, because none of this could happen without them.
Come on, you guys, stand up. Come on.
Thank you. But, you know, and throughout the process, it isn't about not having enough staff.
Okay.
It's about having the capacity and the hours to get this stuff down, because just one of these subjects takes a ton of dialogue and ton of conversation, and to be able to meet at one spot and everybody be happy with what goes forward. You have 21 people, and so you have a lot of different ideas. And,
So even though there are a lot of items in this work plan, it took us a really long time to even get it down to this, and we're still going to have to refine it more, you know, next week on Tuesday. And so the 3 items that we prioritize of accessibility, housing, and transit equity is for various reasons. I mean, that doesn't mean that we're not going to take up other issues, but at some point, based on our past experience, the committee felt that we really needed to prioritize some items that we can constantly work on, so that at the end of the year, the committee could really feel like there's some tangible things that we can come up with at the end of the year. But yeah, we do have a lot of staff support, but then once again, we're only meeting once a month.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Member Barber, then Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having been an early member of the EAC, you guys have come a long way. I mean, this is fantastic to see that the structure of the work plan, the motivation, I'm really impressed. And I know it was tough. And so with that, right now, we're looking at having a new chair in January, a new council seated in March. And one thing you might want to look at incorporating in your work plan is how the information and sort of the journey and the goals and mission can get transferred. So all of the learnings that you've got through the last couple of years can get transferred over to the new council. Because I think then they have an opportunity for the EAC for some continuity, but also for the council members to hit the ground running with equity in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council Member. You're right. I won't be here. I'm not reapplying. So I know the institutional knowledge, the process is important, but I believe we have a lot of really thought out members on the committee itself that are not going to forget this process. Thank you also for serving for the time that you did. I failed to mention at the beginning. Thank you.
Great. Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, good work, really, really good work. Nalima is on a steering committee for the Shared Mobility Collaborative with me, and that's a new organization, and it's tough to start something new and figure that out, and I've often described it as herding really smart cats. Also, I think you undervalue some of your accomplishments. I mean, I really value the input that we got on the fare increase, and then also the input on the regional solicitation equity scoring, which was adopted by TAB unanimously, which is also a tough group. I think that you have a lot of accomplishments, and I'm really glad to see that you're going to help advise us on how to scale up the TAP program, because I think it's a really important benefit, and the folks just don't know about it.
Other comments or questions? I'll just say, just on behalf of all of us, thanks for the two co-chairs. The staff the meetings that I've been at have been great, come prepared, and then I think really to all of us that kind of put this thing together, and we have an equity lens on everything that we deal with now, which I think is a big shift from where we started. So a lot of work to do, but it's a good start, and I'm sure the new leadership and the new council members will continue that. So thanks for doing what you do, and more things to come in 2019. So thank you.
Thank you.
So we have one more item on the agenda. The problem is we can't start until 6 o'clock. So if we could, I think what we'll do is go through Member Rodriguez. But before we do, I think if you wouldn't mind, let me take the liberty. We've got some reports. If we could do that prior, so that when we do our final bit of business, we can move on. So with that, the next item would be reports of council members.
Mr. Chairman, I can start.
Member Cunningham.
Yeah, I had a meeting, and I was with our former chair, Turnoff, at the Federal Reserve, with the Itasca group, really focused on housing and what the role Itasca would play in housing. So she's already moved over there and started to work, and it was a great meeting to talk about what the role of the business community would be in helping to address the housing problem we have, and that was a great meeting. I also had the opportunity to be at a meeting this week at the Minneapolis Urban League, hosted by the NAACP on economics in our community, particularly around what happens to communities of low wealth. And I was joined by the national NAACP vice president there and others, Congressman Ellison, soon to be Congressman-elect, Attorney General, was there as well. And it was a packed room. People are very concerned about how the conditions of low and wealth people are in our community. The council clearly plays a role in helping to address some of these issues within our community. So I thought it was interesting that there was both a private sector response and a governmental response to these issues. And I think you'll hear more and more of this as we move forward. So those are my reports.
Other members? Any comments? Member Munt.
Mr. Chair, I went to the 10th anniversary celebration of the Bicycle Alliance, and it was really fun to see how far bicycling has come in the Twin Cities in the last 10 years. It used to be that bicycling was just about recreation, and now it's also about commuting. And it was really fun to see their victories. They had a band, they had a food truck, and they had people coming from all over the Twin Cities on their bicycles. So that's a clear indication that we're starting to connect our trails.
Other comments? If not, just some brief comments from the acting chair, and I say that acting. All of you appreciate you showing up last week for the groundbreaking of a project that you all had an opportunity to participate in. Great work by the staff. I'd really like to take this time, I believe, it's the last meeting for two of our members, Member Rodriguez and Member Elkins. I will save my more direct and emotional comments for maybe another place and time. But I just want to thank Katie and Steve. I mean, I always kind of put my teacher's hat on and look at all of us, and you always came to class prepared. You read read the information. You went above and beyond what you had to do as a council member, and you just had a significant impact on on those issues that not only are important to the regions, but that are important to you individually. And I think the amount of time that you two spent and other council members really made a huge difference regional. And thanks for your service. And we're looking for more improvements in the region and the new hats that you have as the city manager of Richfield and as a new state rep. So maybe you just want to have a couple of closing comments, because I believe this is your last meeting, unless we have to have something happens in between, but I don't believe that will. But if you could.
I had an interesting experience this afternoon, actually. The Twin West Chamber hosted a presentation on Southwest LRT at Optum headquarters, where I work during the day, for new legislators. And so I was there sitting next to Jim Alexander and Judd Shetland and helping give the presentation to my fellow new colleagues in the West Metro. And it was interesting to be wearing about 3 hats at the same time. But I'm looking forward to my new adventure. We've been drinking from the fire hose, learning how the process works and making new relationships. And I'll almost certainly end up on the Transportation Committee and continuing with the work that I've been doing here for the last 8 years. So you guys haven't heard the end of me yet. So.
And nor do we want to.
Nope.
So thank you for your work and service. Member Rodriguez.
I don't know, I already had my weepy 10 minutes, so I don't know that I can do it. I'm super excited about my new role in Richfield, but as you all know, I have loved this work. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. I think the world of my colleagues. I'll send individual notes to you because I just can't do it, and also very, very proud of staff, and I will miss this, and I think that's all I can do. So
yeah, just say that. I mean, Richfield has been one of my 4 cities for the last 8 years. It's a city that's up and coming. It's always going to have a special place in my heart, and I think Katie's going to do a really good job there.
Great.
thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Good work, and keep it up. Any other comments? If not, Member Rodriguez, we need to take an action because we need to go into recess for a bit.
The original reason I raised my hand was to move that we recess until 6 o'clock.
Okay, so there's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll be back at 6. Thank you.